We've talked about a few different concepts throughout this chapter. In the last lesson, we put those together at a conceptual level, laying out what a full machine learning pipeline looks like. In this lesson, we're going to actually write the code to handle the cleaning portion, or the pre-processing as it's typically referred to, of this machine learning pipeline. These are 4 steps that you'll see in a lot of text cleaning pipelines: removing punctuation, tokenization, removing stop words, and lemmatizing or stemming. We're going to focus on the first 3 steps in this chapter. Then we'll cover lemmatizing and stemming in the next chapter, as those are a little bit more advanced and not implemented in every pipeline. So the beginning of this script will ingest some raw text, and by the end, we'll have text that's all cleaned up and prepared for the vectorization step laid out in the last lesson. It's worth noting that there are custom packages to do most of this for you, like that tokenize function that we saw from NLTK earlier, but I want to walk through this step by step to illustrate how the system works under the hood. So we'll first read in our data. We'll use the same SMS spam collection data set that we've been working with. We'll need pandas to read in this data, so we'll go ahead and import it here. And then we're going to do something new by setting a custom value for how many characters we can see in a pandas data frame when we print it out. So we do this by simply calling PD, which refers to pandas, dot set option, and then the option that we're passing in is display dot max call width, and then we pass in 100. Again, the default here is 50. We're just changing it to 100. So now we're going to read in the data using the pandas read CSV function that we've seen before, indicated that it's tab separated and that there's no header. Then we'll define the column names, and we can go ahead and run that, make sure it prints out properly. So you'll even notice here that this is printing out much more of the actual text message that we saw previously because we widened the column. Before we dive into cleaning up this data set, I want to quickly show you where we're trying to go with this. So I went ahead and cleaned up this data set ahead of time, and I'll read that in just to give you some direction and understanding of what we're working towards. So I'll just go ahead and run this cell. Now you'll notice that the body text column is the raw text that we saw above, and then the body text no stop column is the cleaned up version. So there's no punctuation within the words. They're all split into tokens. You'll see that all the stop words are removed. For instance, just looking at the first row, you'll notice that Ben is gone. You'll notice that for and the are gone. They're not present in this list over here. So this is where we want to get to, and over the next couple lessons, we'll piece together the tools that we need to get this cleaned version. So now we have a decent idea of where we're going. The first step we're going to take is to remove punctuation. In order to remove punctuation, we have to have a way to actually show Python what punctuation even looks like. Luckily, the string package has a list of punctuation in it. So we'll go ahead and import string, and then all we need to do is just call string.punctuation, and we can run that, and that'll just print out a list of different punctuation. So this is really helpful to allow Python to identify what we're looking for here. The reason that we care about this is that periods, parentheses, and other punctuation look like just another character to Python. But realistically, the period doesn't really help pull the meaning out of a sentence. So for instance, for us, I like NLP with a period is exactly the same as I like NLP. They mean the same thing to us, but when you give that to Python, Python says those are not equivalent things. And Python isn't saying I like NLP without a period is different from I like NLP with a period, in that they're really close, but one has a period and one doesn't. To Python, these might as well be I like NLP versus I hate NLP. It knows they're different without any ability to understand how different they are. In order to clean this up, we want to take this list of punctuation and tell Python basically whenever you see anything like this, we want you to remove it. So we're going to build our own function to remove this punctuation. And conceptually, what we want Python to do is cycle through each character, check if it's some kind of punctuation. If it is punctuation, discard it. And if it's not, then keep it. So we're going to use list comprehension to develop that functionality. List comprehension makes it easy to cycle through elements, check if they meet some condition, and then just return if they do meet that condition. So let's go ahead and build this function. So we're going to call it remove punct and open close parenthesis. And within that, we're going to pass in some text. So that's what it expects. Now we need to build our list comprehension. So I'm going to walk through the actual, what we're going to type here, and then I'll revisit it and explain the actual syntax. So what we're going to type in is char for char in text if char not in string dot punctuation. And we'll just all assign this to text underscore no punct. In terms of the syntax of the list comprehension, let's focus on just the part that I've highlighted so far. So we're saying char for char in text. So what this is saying is for the text that we passed in, return each character for each character in this text that's being passed in. So what this will do is it'll create a list where it'll just store a character in each element of that list. Now, the condition that we're really concerned about here is we want to make sure that that character is not punctuation. So now this entire thing is saying return the character for each character in text as long as that character is not in this string of punctuation. So this text underscore no punct will be a list of characters that are not punctuation. So we need to return text underscore no punct. And then in order to actually apply this to our data set, we're going to use what's called a lambda function. So first, we're going to define the name of the column that we want this clean data to be passed into. So we'll call it body underscore text underscore clean. And then we'll set that equal to the column that we want to call this function on. So we want to call this remove punct function on data body text. And then in order to apply the lambda function, what we do is we type dot apply lambda x remove underscore punct x. And so what this will do is it'll apply this function that we just wrote to each element or each row of body text. And so that'll remove all the punctuation and then return it as a column called body text clean. So let's just print out the first 5 rows of that and run it. So it returns each character individually. So this is actually expected behavior since we told it to return a character. And we do need to check each character. So this is a reminder that list comprehension will return a list, and because we explicitly told it to evaluate each character to see if it's in the list of punctuation, when it's done checking, it'll just return that as a single element in the list. So in order to fix this, we're going to wrap this in a join function. It'll take this list that this list comprehension is generating, and it will just join each individual element to one another. And you'll notice if you just join I with the V, with the E, and then space, and then B, it'll recreate our original sentence. Now, the only catch is this join function needs to know how it's joining these things together. So if I indicated a space there and hit dot join, what that would do is it would create I space V space E. So what we want to tell is join it on nothing, basically. We don't want a space in between them. So this will recreate our sentence. So if we go ahead and run that, now you can see that now it's joined right back together as a sentence. So that is how you remove the punctuation from a string. In the next lesson, we'll pick back up right here and learn how to split the string into a list of tokens.